you're one of those people that has a basic understanding of history.
Yeah.
But you don't ever really want to try and dig into it. It's just, it is what it is, and you're not concerned with it.
Well, it's not that I'm not concerned. It's not something that, like, I know, oh, there's going to be comments. This is what's wrong with the world. You're blah, blah, blah. Because there already has been. But it's
The only problem with the world.
Yeah. Nikki's not interested in history. So, I don't know. It's just not something that has ever really, like, grasped my attention in school. And then I would try to read about it. Like, we would have weekly readings or nightly readings. And I would just be like, fuck, you know. And when I was younger, I definitely was like, I hate it. I don't care about it. I definitely care about it now that I'm older. But it's still just not something that I'm going to, like, sit down and, like, read a history textbook.
Yeah, it's delivered in better formats than just history textbooks.
Yeah.
There's many different ways, including Mr. Ballin,
Yeah.
who has his ability to tell good stories. And so when he goes into war stories or anything about the military, I find it very interesting to hear it coming from him and his perspective, given his,
Right.
past career as a Navy SEAL.
I definitely find it more intriguing, especially when it's like from their perspective, like when you hear stories of what people have gone through
from people's perspective.
Yeah.
Some very interesting, odd, and sometimes horrifying stories. But this one could be many different ways. It does say nightmare in the title. This man was the Nazis' worst nightmare. This is Historical Legends Part 1. Bad for Nazis.
Yeah.
Which could be great.
Yeah.
You know? So, y'all ready to check this out?
If you Google the most incredible story of all time, this story that I'm going to tell you today pops up all over the internet. And after reading through it, I can totally understand why. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel, because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer the like button a bag of Rebels, but only leave them the coffee-flavored kind. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's story.
real life superhero.
The United States formally entered World War II on December 8, 1941, after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. At the time, Joseph Byerly was a senior at his high school in Muskegon, Michigan, and he had a scholarship to attend Notre Dame University the next year. But after his graduation in 1942, he decided he didn't want to go to college so long as other kids his age were going off to fight the war. And so he enlisted in the Army, and he immediately volunteered for one of the most dangerous units, the Parachute Infantry. Joseph completed a brutal, accelerated training regimen that included exhausting PT in blistering heat, extended forced marches, grueling full kit runs up mountains, as well as both American and British jump schools. By 1943, Joseph was fully trained and stationed in England and was eager to put his training to the test. But the Allied invasion of Nazi-occupied France, also known as D-Day, was still a few months away. But Joseph didn't want to wait that long, so he volunteered for an incredibly dangerous mission that the OSS was recruiting paratroopers for. The OSS was the predecessor to the CIA. Basically, volunteers would parachute in the middle of the night into Nazi-occupied France with a backpack full of gold. Once they hit the ground, they'd meet up with the French resistance and give the gold to them, and then the resistance would do their best to protect these volunteer paratroopers and hopefully give them a ride back out to England. But by no means was it a guarantee, because many of these volunteers were killed in the process. This was some hardcore, deep cover spy work that the OSS would tell their volunteers, if you get caught on this mission, you're gonna get tortured and you're gonna get executed. Joseph would successfully complete this insane mission, and then he liked it so much, he did it again. Shortly after his second successful OSS mission, word came down that D-Day was set to take place on June 6th. Joseph's unit was told they were going to be parachuted into France the night before in order to destroy bridges, cut power supply lines, and generally soften up defenses before the main invasion happened just a couple of hours later at Utah Beach. So in the dead of night on June 5th, Joseph and his unit were flying over France when they were struck by enemy fire. And so as their plane is literally falling to the ground, Joseph leaps out the door when he's only 400 feet off the ground, and he manages to survive the jump, his parachute inflated just in time, but he landed on top of a church where a Nazi sniper was up in the steeple taking shots at all of the other
Oh my
paratroopers.
God.
When the sniper saw Joseph on the roof, he began taking shots at him, and Joseph managed to dodge the rounds before slipping off the roof and running out of sight. Once on the ground, he slammed the mag into his M1 carbine and then began a one-man mission so incredible that there is a plaque inside of the church he landed on that looks like this. Completely alone, with no idea where the rest of his unit was, Joseph took off running from the church and once again had to dodge more sniper fire, and he eventually made it to the town's power substation, which he blew up with thermite. So he cut the power to the town, and from there he went building to building to building, killing every Nazi he came across, including an entire squad of Nazi infantry that he ambushed with grenades. At some point, Joseph made his way over to one of the bridges leading into this town that if he blew up, it would prevent Nazis from sending reinforcements to Utah Beach. But as he crawled through one of the hedgerows, he fell headfirst into a Nazi machine gun nest, and when he turned around, there were a bunch of machine guns pointed at his face, and so he surrendered. Joseph was marched deeper into France to a POW holding area, and as soon as he got there, explosions ripped out all around him. It wasn't clear if it was German artillery or American aircraft, but whatever it was killing both Germans and American POWs. Joseph took shrapnel to the leg and was blown into a ditch, and despite being in excruciating pain, he took this as an opportunity to escape.
Yeah.
So he got up and ran away as best as he could with his injury, and for 12 hours he remained uncaught behind enemy lines before he was ultimately caught again. This time they put Joseph in the back of a covered locked truck to keep him from escaping, and they decided they would send him to St. Lo and decide what to do with him there. But on their transit to St. Lo, an Allied aircraft strafed the vehicle that Joseph was in, and Joseph survived the attack and was able to leap out of one of the holes in the side of the truck from this attack, and he attempted to escape. But once again, he was caught. The Nazis finally got Joseph to St. Lo, and as soon as they got there, the Americans launched an all-night bombing campaign on the city. But once again, Joseph narrowly survives. A recurring theme of Joseph's story is that he is repeatedly almost killed by his own teammates. For the next few days, Joseph was interrogated 20 to 24 hours a day, but he didn't give them any information, and he repeatedly called them sons of bitches until they got so fed up with him, they just beat him to a pulp, and he was knocked unconscious and kept in the hospital for several days. For the next 3 months, Joseph was starved, beaten, interrogated some more, and moved to multiple POW camps. He'd be forced to do back-breaking labor all day. At night, he would survive Allied bombing runs, and he would constantly weather hunger, disease, and exhaustion. At one point, he was locked inside of this boxcar with 50 other guys. He could barely move inside of it, and once again, it was strafed by Allied planes, and he was one of the very few people to survive that. In September of 1944, Joseph was moved to a Russian POW camp in Poland that held about 12,000 Russian men and women POWs. And as soon as he got there, he immediately began planning his escape. 2 months later, on a freezing night in November, Joseph, along with 3 other American POWs, managed to cut the barbed wire and snuck out of the camp and began making their escape south. They snuck into a railway station and hopped on a train car they believed was headed for Poland. Their plan was to meet up with the Soviet Red Army as it pushed through the region. But unfortunately, they got on the wrong train and they wound up in Berlin, the capital of Nazi Germany. One thing you don't hear much about when it comes to World War II is there was actually a large number of Germans that hated Hitler and totally disagreed with the Nazis. And so they organized a German underground resistance that was designed to help the Allies during the war. And so when Joseph and the other 3 American POWs arrived in Berlin, still wearing their POW uniforms, a member of the German resistance saw them and immediately grabbed them and brought them into hiding. But after only a week, the infamous Nazi secret police, aka the Gestapo, discovered them and arrested them. Over the next 10 days, Joseph and the other American POWs got to see firsthand just how awful the Gestapo really were. They were constantly interrogated while they were beaten, kicked, walked on, strung up by their arms backwards. They were hit with whips, clubs, and rifle butts until they drifted into unconsciousness. And then as soon as they started to come to, it would start all over again. After those 10 days, the Gestapo turned Joseph and the other 3 American POWs over to the German army, who put them in the brutal prison camp called the Stalag Luft III. Upon arrival, Joseph was immediately sentenced to 30 days inside of a 4 by 5 foot pine box that was too small to stand up or lay down in. Fortunately for him, he only had to endure 7 days because a Red Cross operative from Geneva intervened on his behalf. It would take months for Joseph to get his strength back after being inside of this box, but as soon as he did, he began plotting his next escape. One night, Joseph, along with his 3 American POW buddies, managed to break through a prison wall and made a mad dash for freedom, but the Nazi prison guards saw it and opened fire on them. All 3 of Joseph's friends were killed as they ran, but Joseph got away, only to hear the faint barking of the German shepherds the Nazis had sent to hunt him down.
No.
So, in the freezing cold of Poland in January, Joseph leapt headfirst into a partially frozen river and swam over 2 miles down it before getting out and running blindly into the woods. Somehow, miraculously, he managed to reach Soviet lines before he froze to death. And there, he spoke with battalion commander Alexandra Samasenko, a woman who holds the distinction of being the only female tank commander in all of World War II. Even though Joseph spoke very little Russian, he convinced her to let him join her unit. And so she gave him a gun and some ammunition, and she told him what their next objective was. They were going to liberate the same POW camp he had just escaped from. And so Joseph, alongside the Soviet Red Army that he now fought for, turned around and go smash this POW camp. And after the dust had settled, Joseph raided the main camp office and stole his defiant official POW photo that the Germans had taken of him on the first day.
That's a fucking G
Joseph continued
right
to fight
there.
alongside the Soviets across the Eastern Front for a couple of months, but when a German dive bomber blew up the tank that Joseph was riding on, he was evacuated to a Russian field hospital. There, he received a visit from Georgy Zhukov, the most important Soviet military commander in World War II, who was intrigued by the only non-Soviet in the hospital. He sat with Joseph and learned his story through an interpreter, and then afterwards he provided Joseph with official paperwork that would allow him to rejoin American forces. And so, in February of 1945, Joseph was sent to the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, but unfortunately, when he finally met a friendly American face, after nearly a year of fighting behind enemy lines, they didn't believe his story. They told him that Joseph R. Byerly had been killed in action on June 10th, 1944, and that they had already had a funeral mass in his honor in Muskegon, and that his obituary had already been printed in the paper. But despite Joseph painstakingly going through his story over and over again, the ambassador just could not believe what he was hearing. And so, worried Joseph might actually be a well-trained German spy, the ambassador sent him to Odessa to have his credentials verified. But Odessa had the same problem and couldn't verify him, so they sent him to Egypt. Egypt had the same problem, and they too could not verify his credentials. And so they sent him to Italy, where they finally used fingerprints, and they confirmed that, yes, this is in fact Joseph R. Byerly. So on April 11th, 1945, Joseph returned home, and needless to say, his parents were very surprised to see him because they were convinced he died 10 months earlier. 1 year later, Joseph would actually get married in the same church that held his funeral mass when everybody believed he was dead. Joseph was given the Purple Heart, and then in the 1990s was given additional presidential awards from U.S. President Bill Clinton as well as the Russian President Boris Yeltsin. Joseph was also given a custom-made AK-47 from the guy who invented the AK-47. Joseph died in 2004 at the age of 81, and his son would go on to become the U.S. ambassador to Russia under George W. Bush and Barack Obama. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is and where you found it. So give us the timestamp. And if you're the first to do that, we'll pin you at the top of the comments section. If you enjoyed today's video and you haven't done this already, please offer the like button a bag of Revels, but only leave the coffee-flavored kind. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly 3, 4, even 5 video uploads.
I'm going to Google what Revels are because I don't know.
They're little candies.
Revels?
Yeah.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I think they're similar to raisins. Oh. I think. Let me know if I'm wrong.
Revels.
No, I don't know.
Never heard of it.
That's what I think of. I think I've had them a couple of times. Or am I thinking of like Rolos?
Revels. He said something about coffee flavored kind. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up.
I knew people that ate straight up coffee beans back in the day. Mm-hmm. Just eating them. Chocolate covered ones and shit.
Espresso beans.
But you'll get jacked up on those things. But they taste really good, so I can't be around that. Yeah, I think I have had that.
I've never heard of that. If it'll come on now. There we go, way back here. I have never heard of that. Yeah. Interesting.
Now I want some chocolate.
Now I want to like buy them online and just
I want
try
some
them. Anyway, this
Dude.
story was insane.
This
I
man went
feel-
through every ring of hell on earth. A lot of people don't survive a single one of those experiences.
Right. Yeah, and I felt bad because his friends died. That had to
You
be
know
awful.
that has to be the worst.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, just think about it. You know, we've all lost people that are close to us and stuff like that. But it's in that kind of a situation, you're the only one that lives on with that, you know.
Yeah.
To have to move forward and know all these wonderful people that just were, you know, taken by circumstance.
And it was wild. Then he had
Yeah.
to jump into this freezing water in January. I mean, how did he not get pneumonia?
I mean, he probably did. He probably just
This
lived
is
through it.
fine.
It's like, yeah.
Some of these people just can endure the most difficult, ridiculous things.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, there's a couple stories that we've listened to like this, and it just
Yeah.
seems like they can beat the impossible.
Well, I mean, any one of these things could have been completely deadly. Like, he could have... The one that really surprises me is, like, how outnumbered he was and had to go through all these different, like, urban combat situations. You don't even think about... When you think about war, you think of a battlefield and everything.
Right.
This man is in the middle of
Berlin.
fucking, you know, war zones in cities.
Yeah.
You know,
And how lucky
ambushing
he
people and
was
fucking...
to show up, still having a prisoner of war
those
uniform
people
on,
seeing
and
him?
they were like, okay. And
Yeah, they were stepping out on the street in the middle of the capital of Nazi Germany in uniforms that say, "I'm not supposed to be here." Holy shit. You know,
I mean, it only lasted a week, but still.
They were hassling people that did live there and were supposed to be there, even. You know, that was not a comfortable situation.
Yeah.
Damn, and then, you know, if he is in a camp with Russian prisoners of war, like, the Germans hated Americans, but they fucking hated the Russians.
Really?
Oh my God.
I didn't know that.
The bitter feelings between Russia and Germany during World War II were really bad. Yeah, the problems between Germany and Russia in World War II were really, really bad because at a lot of points, Hitler pretended like he was good with people, and he would promise them one thing one day, and then he would go and invade a country the next day.
Right, yeah.
He kept breaking all these agreements. They'd have these big press conferences.
I remember
and
that
sign
from
all this
the
shit.
oversimplified video.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time this shit's going on, it's really bad. It's really bad. What brought us into the war was Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Russian prisoners of war were really fucking getting it. And so for him to be in there with them and then still survive that, unbelievable. And of course the Russians were like, fuck these Americans too.
Well-
you know, they didn't, you know, fuck you guys. And I know I would be turning loose on these people at the embassy. They would have me in jail after going through all of that. And then you finally think,
And
You-
he went to 3 different places, I think. 3 or
dude,
4
and the
different
finish
places.
line just keeps resetting further and further. Like, I would be so bent out of shape over that.
And can you imagine, like, your son has been dead for 10 months. You've had to go to his funeral, grieve that, and probably finally, at that point, start to, like, accept it and somehow, you know, move on with your life afterwards. And then he comes home. I mean, you would be overjoyed, but that would be such a shock.
You'd be throttled.
You know?
I mean, you'd be jacked for a minute over it. But he was a very lucky fellow. Fate and grace followed him through some extraordinarily horrific circumstances.
Absolutely.
And, you know, just like you said, it's the power of the human body, the will to live, grace. It's a combination of a bunch of things. But holy hell, it makes me feel like a wimp.
I know. It's
I feel
literally,
like the
I was like,
biggest
it's
wimp.
kind of inspirational in like a really fucked up way. You know, like he done all of these ridiculous things and his body allowed him to, and like he just kept persevering through all of these seemingly impossible things.
Yeah.
It's like my anxiety, just like doing something trivial.
I have to go into Walmart. God damn it.
Like, all right. That kind of gives me a little bit better perspective. Like, I'll probably be okay.
Yeah. What a beast. And what a great story told by Mr. Ballin. Once again,
always.
You know, so easy to listen to, and I just am able to visualize all this stuff that he's talking about. And I think he does a really good job scripting this stuff out and preparing his stories, man.
I did too.
It's a lot of fun to see this. Like, I can't watch the History Channel over dramatic, drawn out, like they keep cutting shit up and repeating the same stuff, like when they would come back from commercial breaks usually, but it's not actually happening on streaming services. Like Mr. Ballin, that chapter, those guys, it's so hard for me to go back and watch like true crime and mystery shit from network television shows.
What we grew up with,
it's hard. It's different.
Unsolved mystery.
Yeah, like they keep
The
cutting back and
cheesiness of
forth,
it,
and it breaks up the story and repeats shit over and over and over again. And this is so fluid. Like, he has a flow to his storytelling. It's very enjoyable. So if you haven't subscribed to Mr. Ballin's vast social media archive, you definitely should. He's got many different things. He also has Mr. Ballin shorts, so we can start reacting to some really short videos that are interesting by him. That would probably be fun. But you should go check his stuff out. If you enjoyed this video, you could like our video. You could subscribe to the channel. You could even give us some video recommendations.
Yeah, you can do that in the comments below or on our Discord if you haven't joined it already. We've talked about it enough. It is in the description, and we have an awesome community over there full of amazing people who are so fun.
Very fun, very funny. We do community game nights from time to time. We just had our first one.
And it was a great success.
It was a great success. It was fun. We did Jackbox Party Pack 8.
I think so.
I think we had the version on the Switch. It was pretty fun. But yeah, we do a lot of fun stuff. We also go live every Monday and Thursday evening, 6:30. But it would be cool to see you there on a live stream. If not, we appreciate you watching the video, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. But that's going to do it for this one.
See you guys.
See ya.